Hey everybody, Gavin Syme over here at Liberty School, and I want to do a quick video today about public records and how you can get information from your government about an incident you may be involved in or one you're trying to get the word out on. All right, so public records are an important thing, but let's start at the top. I get emails from people pretty often, and they're involved in an incident or they get arrested or something like that, and they say, well, what's happening, what really happened is not what they say happened. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, you think? I mean, very few documents, legal documents, lie more than a police report. They rearrange the order that things happened in. They omit things. They flat out openly lie and perjure themselves on police reports all the time to cover their butt and the butts of their friends. This is totally normal. This is why I always tell people, never engage with a police officer and never have any kind of a confrontation with a government official, ever. Unless the camera's recording. Now that's why one of the reasons it's important to me to have a smartphone where I always have a camera. It's password protected so they can't easily delete it. But whatever you do, don't leave the house without a camera in your pocket. It's super important, and I hear from people a lot that are in sticky situations that are getting their lives turned upside down. And it might be very different if they had evidence, because the things that happened to them would start national conversations, but they have no way to prove it. It's their word against the officers, and of course the corrupt courts and the corrupt judges and the corrupt prosecutors go with the officer's word. So always film. What I'm telling you today is not an excuse to not film. However, there's reasons why you might need a public records. Maybe your camera was taken away from you. Maybe you didn't do what you should have and you didn't record it. Or maybe you're investigating another incident that's not related to you and you're just trying to get the information. Or maybe you're trying to get other recordings and other angles and things like that. I mean, in my situation, when I was arrested in the courtroom, there was all kinds of cameras running. But we still got the records of all the other cameras, all the police cameras, all the courtroom security cameras, everything. And you actually see that used in my arrest video. I probably have 100 gigabytes of media, audio, and video at least from that one incident that you see there, because I pulled all the information together and made a really clear picture of the corruption in that courtroom, even though I still got convicted because they're so corrupt. The judges are working for the prosecutors and they're all working together, and I've talked about this before. It's a topic for another video. Don't expect any justice in the courtroom is what I'm saying, because our justice system is lost at this point. That said, the public conversation is not. With the conversation, we can draw attention to corrupt counties like we did in Douglas County, like I do fairly frequently with different government agencies. We can bring a national conversation to it. There's a lot of great websites and blogs and YouTube channels, and you can take a video that you recorded, that you got from a dash cam, you can put it out there yourself and spread the word and share it with, news agencies and Facebook pages and things like that, and try and get the word out on corruption. Now, how do you do a public records request? It's actually really simple. Here's some discs and DVDs. There's 3 of them. I picked these up today. Probably 5 gigabytes of videos, dash cams, information on stuff here in Grant County. And I have public records requests going in various agencies all the time. And it's pretty normal. It's pretty easy. The bottom line is you have different agencies you're dealing with. So I'm in Washington State under 42.56 in Washington State law. There's a whole bunch of rules for public records requests. The bottom line is they have to give you any records that you request unless they fall under certain exemptions. Okay? Now, this is going to vary depending on the state you're in, but most states are going to have rules about public records, and if you want to find state laws, you go to the state legislature website for whatever state you're in, and you start searching and digging, or you might just be able to call the offices and say, hey, I'm looking for the laws regarding this, and they might tell you which one to look at. Put your government to work for you. Now, when you file a public records request, you're going to target it at the agency that you're requesting it from. So most of my records requests are going to a county, because the county covers a lot of the government offices. It covers the sheriffs, it covers the prosecutors, and oftentimes in use of force police type situations, all that information has already gone to the prosecutor. So anytime typically there's a use of force with a police officer or a shooting or something like that, that information is going to be in the prosecutor's office. And generally, I think you'll find that if the county has it in their system, they have to give it to you. They have to give it to you, except wherein things are redacted. Meaning you might get videos or dash cams from a city agency from the prosecutors. But you can also file public records requests with each agency. So you could go to the city of Seattle and file a public records request. I could go to Grant County and file a public records request. I could go to the Washington State Patrol and file a public records request. The bottom line is you can do public records requests from any agency. Within the county, for example, and within the agency, they're supposed to have a public records request officer. They shouldn't make you jump through a bunch of hoops and go to this person and that person. You generally will go to the website, and they either have a form that you can fill out, or actually what I prefer is I go in person and file it, or usually, unless they're giving me trouble, I just send an email. So I'll go to the website, I'll find out who the public records request officer is. So I might search public records Washington State or public records Grant County. And I'll go to the website and I'll find the email or contact information for a public records officer, and I'll just send an email that reads something. Let's see, here's one I sent to Grant County a while back. Reads something like, public records request for the following items. Please burn to disk. Let me know when to stop by and pay for the disk. Please advise ETA. All dash and body cam videos and audio recordings surrounding the incident involving name on date. Okay? Number 3, info on incidents in the past 18 months involving this person or this officer. So what I generally do, I don't say, hey, can I get the info on that arrest that happened of that guy on 5th Street? Okay, I get specific. I figure out the name of the people involved, whether it's me or someone else. I'll send a fairly wide request. Now, if I'm trying to find information on an officer, I might say, hey, give me 2 years of all use of force incidents with this officer. Okay, and I have no problem throwing large requests at them. We have a corrupt government, and I will put them to work as much as possible to expose that. Now, if it's a specific incident, I might say, I want any media, any audio, any dash cam, any body cam. I'm getting a bit redundant, so they can't look for an excuse to exclude something. So I make sure I'm covering all the bases very clearly. But generally, I don't put the case number of the incident, because a lot of times in criminal incidents, there might be 2 or 3 case numbers, so they might be able to exclude something. So I'll say the incident regarding this person on this date, or something like that. I make it as wide as possible within reason, because when I also get the information, now I have to sift through it and go through it, and that takes time. So what I'll do is I'll type it out. It's nothing that formal, and I'll email it in. And then they might respond and say, well, we need more specific information on this. They might rinky-dinky around and say, well, you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you need to fill out this form. The bottom line is, don't let them give you trouble. They're required to respond to public records requests in most cases. Douglas County, for example, who is a very corrupt county, rinky-dinks people around, and they say, well, you got to go to this department and that department, even though under Washington state law, they are required to have a public records officer. So I'm actually going and saying, okay, I'm calling the Attorney General's office of the state on this. Now, our state Attorney General is corrupt too, so that doesn't mean we're going to get any great help over there, but I'm still going to go through the mechanisms that I can to try and keep the pressure on and keep things moving. The bottom line is, usually when I file public records requests, I do get the information. Sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 2, but generally under public records laws, they're required to respond in a fairly timely manner. They're required to give you the records. They're required to follow the laws in terms of redaction. So, here's all this stuff that I got with these disks, and I've taken them, I've now copied them over to a folder on my computer so I can be nice and organized and not just have a pile of junk building up. I'll mark what it is and what the date was, and now I have it backed up and all that kind of stuff. And in here, here's documents. In this case, this Grant County request, generally they do a pretty good job here, even though Grant County has lots of issues. And so they gave me the request, and then here's actually a list. They're following the law here in this of the things that are exempted, that are redacted, and the reason why and under what law it's been redacted. So for example, here is under this report, redacted, residential address, personal phone number, reason, personal information, statute, etc. And it says why. Sometimes the whole record will be redacted for one reason or another. And sometimes, yes, the counties will use, the government agency will use the laws and the ins and the outs and things like that to avoid being exposed for their corruption. So they'll find ways to redact things, and they might even do it contrary to the law. The problem with that is that puts the public records officer in a precarious situation, because if they're redacting information simply because they don't want you to see it and then that comes out, they can be in even more trouble. But just, watch your back. Make sure you got a paper trail of everything or an email trail or something like that. But don't be afraid. Anybody can file public records requests. A lot of the news stories you're seeing on the internet that are exposing government in a big way came from just requesting dash cams. And won't always have this stuff available. All the cars don't have dash cams. They should, but they don't always. All the police don't always have body cams. Most of the time these days, though, there's some kind of record. You can request that. I'll request the 911 calls. I'll request the audio dispatch recordings. Anything they have on record, I will request, and I'll make the sweeps pretty large. I can request emails of the parties involved that they were sending back and forth to each other and see what was involved there. And you never know what you're going to get when you do a public records request. Now, there's one other way to do it. If you are being charged with a crime, you don't have to go through the normal means. If you're being charged with a crime by, let's say, the county, and the prosecutors charged you with a crime and you're going to court, you can do what's called discovery. And that means you send a letter to the prosecutor and you demand discovery, which means any evidence they're using against you, any media they have, all that kind of stuff, generally speaking, they have to give it all to you in the discovery package. Now, of course, laws vary by states, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you, hey, this is what works. I do this all the time, and you can get a lot of good information. So if you want to just help hold your government accountable, I mean, you can make public records requests with any agency whenever you want and just sift through that information and make sure that they're doing their job, which usually government anymore is not. They're abusing their authority and they're being tyrants. That's what we see all over America, and that's why we have to start being vigilant. If it's a case involving you, it works the same way, except for you're actually in that case going to direct it to the prosecutor's office and demand discovery. And then when I do discovery, I'll actually still be specific. I'll say I want discovery and I want this video, I want any audio, I want any security cameras, I want this, and this. Again, so I don't give them any cause to leave anything out. Every agency, all the way up to the federal government, with the federal government you can file a FOIA request and just file the public records request with the agency in question. Then you can pull in the information and all the videos. And if you want to try and get a video out to YouTube or something like that, you can then take that information, those videos, you can combine it with videos that you've made. You can get a basic video editor so that you can compile it all or raise the volume of the audio or something like that, and just make a video that shows people the truth and get it out there on YouTube, on the internet, on Facebook, whatever. This is a great way to keep conversations going, to educate people about liberty, and to try and expose these things. I hear from people a lot, and I'm like, well, don't expect justice from the court system, because the court system is rigged to make sure that you're guilty. But a lot of these people I hear from, I'm like, man, if they only had a video, because what they're saying, if what they're saying is true, and it probably is, it would be a national conversation, except for they didn't have the camera running when they went to their front door. So, number one, always film. If they tell you to turn the camera off, never do it. And number two, get those public records requests in. This is just a few tips. If you have some of your own, leave them in the video comments. If this is helpful, share it with someone else. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Keep the message going. Let's keep uniting and standing on principle to restore liberty. That's our job, so let's get to it.